How to talk in English. Sarah always felt a pang of inadequacy when English conversations arose. Her dreams were filled with eloquent dialogues, yet reality presented a stark contrast. The thought of initiating even a simple greeting would make her heart pound relentlessly. She desperately wanted to bridge this communication gap, but where to begin seemed an insurmountable puzzle. Every attempt felt like scaling a linguistic mountain. One quiet evening, she stumbled upon an old, dusty journal her grandmother had kept. It wasn't just any journal, it contained entries detailing her grandmother's own journey of learning a new language. The first page read, "To speak, you must first whisper." This cryptic message sparked a tiny flicker of hope within Sarah's burdened mind. Her grandmother's advice emphasized starting incredibly small, a truly step-by-step approach. Sarah began by simply repeating English words she heard on TV shows. Not sentences, just individual words, focusing on pronunciation and intonation. This private practice allowed her to build confidence without the immediate pressure of public performance. It was a humble, yet crucial, beginning. Next, she moved to short phrases, like, "thank you," or, "excuse me." She would say them to herself, mirroring native speakers. This incremental progression felt less daunting, more manageable. The journal stressed consistency over intensity. Even 5 minutes of focused repetition daily accumulated into significant progress over weeks and months. The journal then encouraged listening, truly listening, to native speakers. Sarah started immersing herself in English podcasts and audiobooks, not necessarily understanding every single word, but absorbing the rhythm and flow. Her grandmother wrote, "Your ears are the gates to your tongue." This insight transformed her learning routine profoundly. She understood that comprehension didn't always precede speaking perfectly. Sometimes, just letting the sounds wash over her was enough to build familiarity. This passive listening eventually transitioned into active listening, where she tried to pick out specific words and common phrases, noting their context. It was a gentle, natural progression. The next challenge was talking to people. Sarah's grandmother suggested starting with very low-stakes interactions. Perhaps ordering coffee in English, or asking a shop assistant for help. The goal wasn't flawless conversation, but simply to break the ice and overcome the initial psychological barrier of speaking aloud to others. Her first attempt was at a local cafe. She managed to stammer, "One, coffee, please." It wasn't graceful, but the barista understood. A small victory, yet it felt monumental. The fear still lingered, but a tiny crack had appeared in the wall she had built around her English-speaking aspirations. The journal entry for that week read, "Mistakes are not failures, they are signposts on your journey." Sarah constantly worried about making errors, a pervasive anxiety that paralyzed her. Her grandmother's words offered a refreshing perspective, reframing blunders as essential components of the learning process rather than embarrassing setbacks. She started viewing every grammatical slip or mispronounced word not as a mark of shame, but as an opportunity for correction and improvement. This mindset shift was profoundly liberating. It allowed her to experiment more, to take risks with new vocabulary and sentence structures, without the crushing fear of imperfection. To overcome the fear of making mistakes, her grandmother suggested embracing them. Sarah started consciously trying to use new words, knowing she might err. The simple act of trying was the victory. People rarely judged, often, they admired her effort and willingness to communicate in a foreign language. Sarah then focused on remembering words. Her grandmother's trick was contextualization. Instead of rote memorization, she would try to create short, simple sentences using new words. For instance, if learning ubiquitous, she'd say, "Smartphones are ubiquitous now." This created mental hooks, making recall much easier. Another powerful technique was spaced repetition. She'd review new vocabulary at increasing intervals, after an hour, a day, 3 days, a week. Flashcards became her best friends, but only when used actively, trying to recall the word before flipping. This systematic approach solidified new lexicon in her long-term memory. Her grandmother's journal contained many talking tips. One key piece of advice was to focus on fluency over accuracy in the early stages. "Get your message across, even if it's imperfect," she wrote. This relieved the pressure of sounding absolutely perfect, encouraging more spontaneous communication and less self-censorship. Another tip: paraphrase when stuck. If Sarah couldn't recall a specific word, she learned to describe it using simpler terms. This kept the conversation flowing and demonstrated her ability to adapt. It was a clever way to navigate vocabulary gaps without resorting to silence or giving up mid-sentence. The journal emphasized listening actively, not just waiting for your turn to speak. Sarah practiced truly hearing what the other person was saying, asking clarifying questions. This made her responses more relevant and natural. It transformed conversations from monologues into genuine exchanges, fostering deeper connections with speakers. Her grandmother also highlighted the importance of mirroring. Subtly imitating the speaking pace and even some common phrases of native speakers helped Sarah sound more natural. This wasn't about losing her own accent entirely, but about blending in, becoming more comfortable with the natural cadence of English conversation. One crucial tip for improving English was consistent daily exposure. Sarah committed to at least 30 minutes of English immersion every day, whether it was listening to music, watching a short news clip, or attempting to read an English article aloud. Consistency proved to be her most potent ally. She also started tracking her progress. Noticing how many new words she learned each week, or how much longer she could sustain a conversation without needing to switch to her native tongue, provided immense motivation. Small victories built into a significant surge of self-belief and encouragement. Sarah's journey began with isolated whisperings, slowly evolving into confident spoken words. The transformation wasn't instantaneous, but a gradual unfolding, nurtured by her grandmother's wise words and her own unwavering dedication. Each small step accumulated, building a solid foundation for fluency. The journal consistently reminded her why listening was paramount. "You cannot pour from an empty cup," it read. Listening filled her linguistic cup, providing the patterns, vocabulary, and grammar structures she needed to produce her own speech effectively. It was the crucial input for her output. She discovered that listening to different accents was also beneficial. Exposure to various pronunciations expanded her comprehension skills, preparing her for real-world interactions where English speakers came from diverse backgrounds. This breadth of exposure made her a more adaptable and confident listener. The initial fear of speaking with people slowly began to dissipate. Sarah initiated conversations at grocery stores, during her commute, and even online. She wasn't seeking perfection, she was seeking connection. Every brief interaction chipped away at her anxiety, replacing it with growing confidence and ease. Her grandmother's journal entry about how to talk to anyone suggested finding common ground quickly. Sarah practiced initiating discussions by asking simple, open-ended questions about shared interests, like the weather or a recent local event. This made conversations feel less like an interview and more like a genuine exchange. It also advised being genuinely interested in the other person's response. Active listening wasn't just for understanding, it was for building rapport. When Sarah showed authentic curiosity, people were more willing to engage, providing her with more speaking practice and positive interactions, reinforcing her progress. For remembering words, Sarah started creating visual associations. If she learned serene, she'd picture a calm lake and the word serene floating above it. Linking words to vivid images or personal experiences made them stick much more effectively than simple repetition, turning vocabulary acquisition into a creative process. She also began labeling objects around her house with their English names. Her kitchen became a living classroom, with cupboard, faucet, and sink sticky notes everywhere. This constant visual reinforcement ensured she encountered the words repeatedly in a natural, immersive context, boosting recall. To improve overall English, her grandmother's tips included journaling in English. Sarah started writing a few sentences each day about her thoughts or experiences. This allowed her to practice sentence construction and vocabulary usage without the pressure of real-time conversation, consolidating her learning independently. Reading aloud was another powerful technique. She would read articles or short stories, focusing on pronunciation and intonation. This helped bridge the gap between understanding written English and producing spoken English, making her familiar with the sound of her own voice articulating English words. Sarah also joined an online English conversation group. This provided a safe space to practice with other learners and even some native speakers. The shared goal created a supportive environment, where mistakes were understood and corrected gently, fostering a sense of community and collective growth. The journal reminded her that even native speakers make mistakes. This powerful realization normalized her own errors, preventing them from becoming demoralizing. It wasn't about absolute perfection, but about effective communication and continuous improvement, a lifelong journey rather than a destination. Her grandmother's wisdom truly shone through when discussing resilience. "There will be days you feel like giving up," she wrote. "On those days, just do one small English thing. Listen to a song. Read one sentence. Just don't stop entirely." This counsel kept Sarah moving forward. Sarah learned to celebrate every tiny win. Successfully asking for directions, understanding a joke, or articulating a complex thought, each was a milestone. These micro-celebrations reinforced positive behavior and motivation, making the long journey feel less arduous and more rewarding at every step. The core message from the journal was that talking in English starts with simply starting. Not waiting for perfect grammar or an expansive vocabulary. Just opening her mouth and allowing sounds to form words, however hesitant, was the most crucial initial step, overcoming inertia. She recognized that fear of judgment was often the biggest barrier. Her grandmother's words encouraged empathy for herself. Everyone starts somewhere. By being kind to her own learning process, she reduced self-criticism, allowing more freedom for authentic expression and less internal pressure. To speak with people effectively, Sarah learned the power of simple phrases. "Could you repeat that?" or "What do you mean?" became her go-to phrases when confused. These showed engagement without revealing insecurity, and often led to clearer explanations, enhancing her understanding significantly. She also practiced using filler words naturally, like, or, not excessively, but enough to sound less robotic and more conversational. These small linguistic nuances made her sound more like a natural speaker, buying her time to formulate thoughts and responses. Her grandmother's final talking tip was about confidence. "Speak with conviction, even if unsure," she advised. Projecting an air of confidence, even when fumbling, often made listeners more receptive and patient. It conveyed a willingness to communicate, which trumped momentary linguistic shortcomings. Sarah's fluency blossomed. Conversations that once terrified her now energized her. She found herself discussing complex topics, sharing jokes, and even mediating disagreements, all in English. The journey from silent fear to confident articulation felt nothing short of miraculous, yet it was painstakingly built. She realized that continuous learning was essential. English wasn't a destination, it was a path. New words, new idioms, new nuances emerged constantly. This ongoing discovery kept her engaged and prevented stagnation, ensuring her English skills remained sharp and adaptable in various situations. Why she always made mistakes became clearer: it was part of the learning curve. Each mistake highlighted a gap in her knowledge, prompting her to look up corrections and internalize them. They were not failures but invaluable data points for improvement, guiding her towards accuracy. The journal specifically mentioned how to talk to anyone: look for commonalities. Find a shared interest or a point of connection. This makes initiating a conversation less intimidating and provides immediate topics for discussion, facilitating a more natural and comfortable interaction from the outset. It also emphasized active listening as the bridge to talking with anyone. When you truly listen, you gather information that allows you to formulate relevant questions and responses. This makes you an engaging conversationalist, encouraging others to reciprocate and extend the dialogue. Sarah started listening to English music, paying close attention to lyrics. She would look up unfamiliar words, trying to understand the song's narrative. This made vocabulary acquisition enjoyable and relevant, connecting new words to emotions and rhythm, making them unforgettable through auditory memory. To remember words better, she also started using them immediately in context. If she learned a new adjective, she'd try to describe something around her using that word. Active usage cemented the word's meaning and natural application, transforming passive knowledge into usable vocabulary. Her English improved dramatically because she understood that every element of language learning, listening, speaking, reading, writing, was interconnected. Neglecting one aspect would inevitably hinder progress in others. She embraced a holistic approach, ensuring balanced development across all skills. The importance of listening was reiterated constantly in the journal. It was the foundation. Without sufficient input, her brain wouldn't have enough data to generate accurate or fluent output. Listening cultivated her ear for the language, making her speaking sound more natural and rhythmic. Sarah realized that listening wasn't just about understanding words, it was about understanding culture, tone, and context. It helped her grasp subtleties, humor, and appropriate social cues. This depth of understanding transformed her English from merely functional to truly communicative and nuanced. The journal had a page dedicated to "Why You Must Listen." It explained that listening trains your brain to recognize patterns and anticipate responses, making conversations less effortful. It builds an intuitive understanding of grammar and common phrases, a subconscious absorption of the language's mechanics. Listening also provided a mental model for pronunciation. By hearing native speakers, Sarah refined her own accent and intonation, sounding more natural and less like she was translating directly from her native tongue. It was a crucial component for developing authentic spoken English. Her journey was a testament to patience and persistence. There were frustrating days, moments of doubt, but her grandmother's wisdom, encapsulated in those journal entries, always brought her back to the core principles: start small, embrace mistakes, listen actively, and speak often. She transformed from someone paralyzed by fear into an enthusiastic communicator, eagerly seeking opportunities to engage in English. Her personal growth extended beyond language, instilling a newfound confidence in tackling other challenges in her life, proving that mastery begins with courage. Sarah often shared her grandmother's insights with others struggling with English, emphasizing the importance of breaking down the learning process into manageable steps. Her story became an inspiration, demonstrating that fluency is achievable through consistent effort and a positive mindset. The journal concluded with a simple, yet profound, message: speak your truth, in any language. Sarah's truth was now confidently articulated in English, a language that once felt foreign and intimidating. Her voice, once silent, now resonated clearly and powerfully, echoing her journey. So, how to talk in English? Start today. Whisper a word, then a phrase. Listen to every sound. Embrace every mistake as a lesson. Talk to anyone, even if imperfectly. Remember words by using them. Improve daily through consistent effort. Most importantly, always listen.